Well, sources close to the president told Politico that Tuesday was one of the darkest days of his presidency, and the guilty pleas, quote, could lend new credence to the Mueller probe, even after the president's allies spent months undercutting public faith in this investigation. Well, according to the New York Times, advisors were left scrambling to rebut Cohen's allegations. One source told the Times they could not come up with something to explain away Mr. Cohen's admissions beyond calling him a liar. Well, today, Sarah Sanders insisted, despite Cohen's claims, that the president did nothing wrong.
He did nothing wrong. There are no charges against him. Again, I'm not going to get into the back and forth details. I can tell you, as the president has stated on numerous occasions, he did nothing wrong. Again, I think that's a ridiculous accusation. The president in this matter has done nothing wrong, and there are no charges against him. But what I can tell you is what the president has stated a number of times. He did nothing wrong. There are no charges against him. Just because Michael Cohen has made a deal doesn't mean anything with regards to the president. The president has done nothing wrong. There are no charges against him. There is no collusion.
Well, Rudy Giuliani told Robert Costa of the Washington Post that he had spoken to the president about yesterday's events, and they both believe that Mueller, quote, might be at the end now. He has to be winding down. This is Rudy talking. What else is there? Near the end. This is Rudy talk. Hard to believe. Barring that, one source close to President Trump told John Roberts of Fox News, remember, the president cannot be indicted. For more, I'm joined by Jennifer Rubin, opinion writer for the Washington Post, Seth Waxman, former federal prosecutor, Barbara McQuaid, former U.S. attorney, and Robert Costa, national political reporter for the Washington Post and host of Washington Week on PBS. Thank you. I want to start with the legal questions right now. It seems to me, Seth, that the only thing protecting this president from a criminal indictment is the fact that he's president right now, and he will be for the rest of his 4-year term. Who knows what comes later?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if this was an average citizen engaging in this kind of conduct, you think that he'd be a co-conspirator named in those charges along with Mr. Cohen. So, you know, the president sits in a unique position. There's many people that hold the opinion that he can't be indicted as a sitting president. I tend to fall into that category. But, you know, we're yet to see how that plays out, ultimately, potentially, in impeachment proceedings.
Barbara, to most Americans, they wonder, they say no one's above the law. That's part of our national belief system. In this case, it seems like the president is above the law until he's not president. How do you read it?
Yeah, I think that's right, and I think that's what our Constitution says. I agree with Seth that I think a president cannot be indicted, but he can be impeached and he can be charged later. And I think this is a very serious violation.
So you agree with Brett Kavanaugh? You agree with Brett Kavanaugh, the guy who's nominated for the Supreme Court, that presidents shouldn't be harbored or bothered by criminal investigation or indictment? He said not even investigation.
Well, I don't know that I agree that that's the correct answer, but I agree that that is DOJ policy, and I think Robert Mueller is going to follow it.
Let me ask you, let's go into what comes next here, Jennifer, and the question is what comes next. This guy hasn't, quote, technically agreed to give away everything in order to get a lighter sentence, but he's still facing 5 or so years. That's not the greatest deal in the world. I think they can give a juicier offer, in my sense. What happens if he comes out now and says more about the Russian collusion piece of this, which Lanny Davis, his lawyer, says there's something big there?
Although there is nothing that resembles a cooperation agreement, is, I think, implicit in the deal. First of all, the prosecutors can bring additional charges. That's not precluded. He doesn't want that happening. Of course, he wants the lightest sentence possible. He wants that sentencing memo.
He wants a 1.5 years in Allenwood.
Correct. So he has all the incentive in the world. He is going to be cooperating.
Play tennis, little weightlifting,
yes.
A nice white-collar crowd to hang around with.
There you go. And what's more, since he has pled guilty, he doesn't have much of a Fifth Amendment right to refuse. He's got to testify. Now, I think he's going to do so cooperatively. I don't think he's going to have to be subpoenaed or anything like that. But listen, he was there for the women. He was there for the money. He was there going back years and years with Trump in terms of his business operations and the Russians. And he tells us, or Lanny would have us believe, that he was there during the campaign and has some knowledge about the hacking before or after or during, and that is the collusion. By the way, this no collusion thing, of course, is wrong. We have the June 2016 meeting, which is collusion. His son-in-law, his campaign manager.
Yeah, we
with
saw
Russians.
that meeting. Anyway, they would admit they were there. They admit they basically were there to deal with the Russians to get dirt. Anyway, that was their purpose. And then, of course, Rudy says, but we didn't get what we wanted. Anyway, earlier today, President Trump tweeted, Michael Cohen pled guilty to 2 counts of campaign finance violations that are not a crime. President Obama had a big campaign finance violation, and it was easily settled. Throwing in Obama there again. During an interview with Fox, he seemed to confess to campaign violation while trying to deny it. Let's watch his mixed-up argument here. This is Rudy.
Did you know about the payments?
Later on, I knew. Later on. But you have to understand, Ainsley, what he did, and they weren't taken out of campaign finance. That's a big thing. That's a much bigger thing. Did they come out of the campaign? They didn't come out of the campaign. They came from me, and I tweeted about it. You know, I don't know if you know, but I tweeted about the payments. But they didn't come out of campaign. In fact, my first question when I heard about it was, did they come out of the campaign? Because that could be a little dicey. And they didn't come out of the campaign, and that's big. But they weren't. It's not even a campaign violation.
Barbara, this is backing and filling, but to get to the president's defense, he's saying basically, this is under Buckley-Valeo, the idea that, you know, ultimately a person who's rich can buy all they want in campaign advertising, whatever they want. That's the way it works with our Rockefeller system. But Trump seems to be saying, as long as I ultimately paid the $130 for Stormy Daniels, the $150 for Karen McDougal, if I was the ultimate payee, no matter what was the paperwork problem, I'm not guilty of any serious crime. Is he right or wrong?
No, he's wrong. Buckley v. Valeo and other campaign finance cases divide the world of campaign finance into expenditures and contributions. President Trump is focusing on expenditures. He's focusing on expenditures. The charges in the document that Michael Cohen pleaded guilty to relate to contributions, and Buckley v. Valeo upheld limits on contributions. There are two charges. One, that Michael Cohen exceeded the limit.
There's no limit on a candidate spending how much they want to spend.
But it was Michael Cohen's...
There's no constitutional limit on that, Barbara. Any candidate who wants to spend all they want for their campaign for office, they can do that, right?
Sure, but they still have to disclose it on their documents if they're doing that. The bigger picture here...
So is a disclosure issue only? That's what I'm trying to get to. Is this Dershowitz and others are saying this is not a felony situation. This is a paperwork issue. It's technical. But as long as it's you ultimately paying constitutionally, you're entitled to spend all you want on your own campaign. That's their argument. What do you make of it?
You have to disclose who made the payment, and two, you look at motive and intent in a case like this. The intent here was not, as in the Obama situation, a clerical error, failure to file paperwork on time in a timely manner. This was an intent to mislead by hiding the nature of the payment, and so this is the kind of case that gets prosecuted.
Robert, I would think that this president would argue, and I think he is arguing there with the Fox reporter there in the outside the Oval Office there, on the little sun deck there. I can defend his argument will be the ultimate Buckley-Valeo argument, which is you can spend all of your own money, and maybe there's a paperwork problem on the pass-through, but it was my money and it's legal, it's constitutional. Isn't that his argument now? I thought I heard it.
That is the argument. The challenge they're going to face, Chris, is that
what's the president's thinking here?
The president's thinking is, having talked to Giuliani and White House officials today, that he can try to shrug this off legally, politically, as something that's not a campaign violation. But they face the challenge that Cohen has already admitted in court, in federal court on Tuesday, that he did commit a violation, that he did break the law, pled guilty. And so that's the reality. And then there's the argument they make.
Well, if the president's lawyer admits the guilt of a felony, a couple of them, in fact, for the 130 and 150, admits it was really a campaign expenditure and it wasn't filed properly, it was concealment. Are they saying that that makes the client guilty if the lawyer says he's guilty?
They're going to really mount a credibility war against Cohen in the coming weeks. Pay attention to that, because Giuliani's saying he's going to call on Cohen to release all the tapes Cohen had in conversations with reporters, private exchanges, to try to see if Cohen said anything that goes against what he just pled guilty to.
Let me go to Seth on this legal question. What do you make of what I was just talking about with Barbara? How guilty is the president? Is it a paperwork issue, or did he really commit a felony, a serious felony here?
Yeah, I think there's a basis for a serious felony. The campaign finance law determines criminality at the moment of the contribution. So when Michael Cohen makes that contribution, that's the crime at that moment. If you were to allow candidates to then backfill or, remedy the problem after the fact, then you could basically upend all of campaign finance law by just saying, oh, my corporation did it, or that was an over limit. That was just really my own personal.
Don't you have to argue the intention there?
Yes.
That Cohen was intending to pay for that money and not get the money from Trump?
Yeah, and he's saying that. He's admitting under oath that
it was his payment.
Correct.
And he procured another payment from a corporation, which is illegal. That was the second charge. And although Trump says, I knew about it after the fact, we know from the tapes that he knew about it contemporaneously or before. So if it was all legal, if he could do this, why was he having money paid from AMI? Why was he having his lawyer pay it? Why did they set up a dummy company? If it was all perfectly legal, he should have just paid the money.
I want to get to the horse whisperer here. Robert, what do you make of this? I mean, we went home from work last night. All my producers and I all came home thinking this is a very, very bad day for the president. Two things happened. The guy who ran his campaign for many months, it looks like he's facing a hard time. I just look like it, and I don't have any particular animus to the guy. I just think he's facing a large amount of terminal time because he's going to go to Washington, D.C. for another court hearing with 1,000 documents being thrown out. And this guy is in serious. He's 69 years old. He may never get out. This is something you have to feel a little bit for this guy. And then you got, of course, Michael Cohen, who was so close in with this president. They were like locked together in the biggest secrets in the world. Women, all kinds of payoffs, all personal stuff we've never heard about. And now this guy is facing, he's at least going to Allenwood, someplace like that for a couple of years. Where's the president feel about his own situation? Does he have any sympathy for these guys or what? What can you tell?
I just filed my story for tomorrow's paper about all this, and you got the White House today, Chris, is like the eye of a political hurricane. They're trying to project calm, but they know they're surrounded by this political storm. They try to have him have a friendly face, and Ainsley Earhardt, a journalist from Fox News, his favorite show, Fox and Friends, come for an interview. They put him on the phone with Shinzo Abe, the Japanese prime minister. They had him do a gallows humor tweet about Michael Cohen. Anything but a political war today. But they don't think inside of the White House that this is going to last. Giuliani calling from Scotland, talking to the president, says maybe Mueller's wrapping up if he's wrapping up Manafort, but there's no evidence to really back that up. There's a lot of confidence, but not a lot of evidence that their confidence really is going to play out.
So they don't think it adds up. In other words, it's not like the compartments are all flooding on the Titanic. He doesn't think like that. It's just another day. Is that the way they look at it? I can get through the day. That means I can survive. Is that the way they look at it? Marginally like that, or they don't see it adding up?
Chris, is a different White House than it was a year ago with Bannon and Priebus and Rob Porter and Hope Hicks there. They're all gone. This is a General Kelly, Kellyanne Conway White House. This is a White House that's with now Bill Shine. It's a TV White House, the president talking to Giuliani. Yeah. It's a different mindset. It's not as political, as charged internally as it once was.
It sounds like the wartime consiglieres are taking over. Thank you, Jennifer Rubin. Thank you, Seth Waxman. Thank you, Barbara McQuaid and Robert Costa.